Life is messy, our minds are messy, success is blinking messy. Join me, Charlotte Hopkins, on the Gloriously Messy Me podcast, where I'm opening up hearts, minds, and souls to navigate life's unique messiness. Exploring identity, culture, belonging, and success, I, along with some phenomenal special guests, will be sharing my own experiences, as well as impactful theories and top tips on how I help people unleash their incredible potential to take courageous action and build a life that they love. Okay, let's get on to today's episode. Hello, and a huge welcome back. So this is my last guest in the current series of Who Helped Me Unmess My Mess. And again, I'm so excited about Paul being here with me because he has been the next kind of tripping point, I think is the word to say, into the next phase of what is already being seen as significant growth in my business. So huge welcome, Paul, and thank you for coming and joining me. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do first?
So I'm basically that tech guy behind the scenes, the organized, logical piece of the puzzle, let's say. And the way that I kind of sum up what I do nowadays is I help people turn their ideas into reality. So it's not so much about like the tech itself. Like I'm not attached to any one piece of tech or whether it's really fancy automation or actually just helping someone get their idea off the ground. So it's a recent thing that I've been like, that's what it is, ideas into reality.
I also think you are the calm in my chaos.
Yes. So one of my clients calls me their cozy jumper, that it's you feel, and one of them also calls me their squirrel cage, where it's like they've got chaos going on, but I put enough of a cage so that there's some structure, but there's not too much so that it's like constricted.
Totally. I can absolutely see that. And I think from my journey, I wouldn't be where we were, certainly from a podcast perspective, but that ripple effect that you've had across my business as well. Mm-hmm. So let me explain that a little bit more. So I am a self-confessed control freak, and anybody that's worked with me knows that I am not a micromanager, but I do like to make sure I'm knowing what's going on. And I'm actually very good at not micromanaging, I think. But I have to know that progress is happening. I have to know that there's some kind of logic. But that means that sometimes, well, all the time, if I'm being entirely honest, but most of the time, I take on too much and I try and do everything myself. So when I first had this brainwave of a podcast, and I was quite clear, I think, Paul, that I knew what the title was going to be and I knew what I wanted to be talking about. It was, essentially the Charlotte Show. And there was lots of kind of understanding about it. And I was like, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to learn how to do the tech. I'm going to learn how to edit the podcast. I'm going to learn how to do it. And the podcast sat dormant for at least 12 to 18 months because guess what? I didn't do it. And I'd been stalking Paul nicely for a little while. And we'd had a couple of conversations, hadn't we?
Yeah, we had, yeah.
And I just knew really that when I finally understood that I needed to outsource, that I had to at least have a conversation with Paul. And I think I feel like you're the yin to the yang in the team that is Gloriously Messy Me.
Yeah, it is often. A lot of my clients are more on the messy side, but I see it as the creative ideas side. It's like you can sit with them, as I know from watching the kind of podcast and helping behind the scenes, that the people you work with, people spend time with you and it's like ideas. It's like, where do these like for someone like me, it's like, where do these ideas come from? Like type thing. But that's where I think the thing that I've seen is that people can have the ideas, but then if they don't then follow through, if they haven't got a structure, if they haven't got someone to support them, and for me, it's often that it's like, well, it's that whole zone of genius or zone of joy type thing. Totally. It's like, what do you just enjoy doing? That's the key thing. And I think I'm very similar in terms of kind of control freak. I used to build loads of websites, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll start an agency, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't really relinquish the control enough. So it was like, okay, no. But it's yeah, it's that thing of finding those pieces of the puzzle that you need. And to start with, most people are just doing everything themselves, and it's like needs to an end, like needs must type thing. But there comes a time where your growth or your enjoyment of your business starts to be limited or restricted or reduced because of that trying to do it all yourself.
Absolutely. And I think I can always see throughout my career that I've always struggled to pass over certain things. And, you know, I've talked lots about this idea of being a recovering perfectionist, but it rears its ugly head quite often. But there was just something, I think, with the podcast that I knew, and you've worked with me. So we launched in April, and even in that short few months, you've worked and seen, you know, I juggle lots. There's lots going on, and there wouldn't have been the time to have been consistent. And I think that's the bit for me that you've really helped with, is that consistency. But I've had to really learn how to trust. And I think I used to be able to do that, but it took a long time in a team that I'd been working alongside. It has just been me and Mr. H who've been, you know, holding the fort for the last 3.5 years. And Kimby's just turned 6 in February. So we're 6.5 years nearly. And it has just been us. But since we started working together, and that kind of relinquishing control, because I absolutely, you know, was the right thing to have done, we've seen significant growth. So sometimes we think that we're doing what's the right thing, but it really isn't.
What do you I just, because it's interesting, because I didn't feel any like pressure of like the trust, or that for me wasn't an issue. So you kind of kept that to yourself very well, sort of thing.
Very good.
But it's like, do you think it was just the fact that you were doing everything yourself, that it was just like, this is how we do it, and then it's like a jump out of the comfort zone, or was it something else that would kind of made that leap more challenging?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think because there's that, I have a clear vision, and that vision I find sometimes really hard to verbalize. So there's almost this expectation of somebody not being able to meet that vision. So that's definitely the control part of me. There's also that aspect of, do I invest in somebody and they don't do what they're going to do, which is why I kind of stalked you for about 18 months. There was this, so I knew practically that when I worked with you, you had the skill set that I didn't have. So there was that aspect that I felt much more comfortable with. I think the other thing for me was that helped me find that trust was, I feel we've got quite a similar value set. So it wasn't going to be something that I had to fight you on. And I think having worked with you for the last 4 or 5 months, I think now, I've really seen that in action. And I know that if you're going to do something, you do it. You're a great communicator. So if you can't do something or something's been delayed, you let me know. So I feel like you kind of lean into that need for control. But I also think you're quite good at saying, yeah, I'm not really sure why we're doing that. So if I come up with another idea or a pivot or a change, then you've been really good in saying, okay, but why are we doing that? And I need that kind of grounding.
That's
but
the cage.
That is it's kind of keeping, I call it nudgery, but it kind of just nudge me back on track, like nudge me back to where we were. And even when I've said, no, the vision's changed slightly, because that's what happens, you kind of allow that flow to happen and work along that, unless it feels like it's a complete curveball. So there was lots of things that prior to working with you had shown I could trust you, but actually that tentative kind of stepping over with one another as we launched the podcast as well, that also then just reaffirmed that I can trust you.
Yeah. And I think that's where for me, the way that I work with clients and that clients get benefit from me is that I get to know them really well and their vision really well, so that then, because we all shoot ourselves in the foot at times, we all either have shiny object syndrome or like self-sabotage and like these various things, and it's just having that external person who's like, that's a cool idea, but you said, and it's not in a like, I'm all up for changing, like I'm all up for pivoting, but it's one of those where sometimes I know my clients aren't necessarily always thinking clearly or thinking for their best self sort of thing. So it's like having those conversations. And I think that's where, for me, it's not that whole turning ideas into reality. It's not about making 6 figures, 7 figures. It's about helping people, like the podcast for you. It's like, it's awesome to be part of something that gets created that someone's always wanted to do. Whether that's a podcast or a course or a book or whatever it is. But it's like, I want to get to know that person of like, why do you want to do this? Is there something actually, like, so many times when I start working with clients now, it's like, I want to do this. And then we end up having conversations like, oh, I think I've changed my mind, Paul. It's like, and it's like, cool, okay. Like, and that's great because it's often, I think there's such a trap nowadays, and I did this for so many years, which is why I can, I suppose, see it, is that we fall into what we think we should be doing or what other people are doing, comparing and things like that. And it's one of those where if you can start to get into just what would be really cool, or what idea do you have that if in 20 years you didn't try to create, whether you create it or not, or what happens, like you'd be like, oh, I really wish I'd
and
I think
that
that's
fear of regret is something that it drives me for a lot of things. And I can honestly say I don't regret anything. And I think that's a really important part. And a lot of the people that I work with who have just the most incredible experience and expertise, and some just don't see it, and I want to shake them. But those that do, who then sit on it and think, yeah, but I hate my job. I hate where I am. I've been doing this for 30 years, some of which have been like in the same space for 20 odd years, 20 plus years. And that's great if you're happy. But I know that already that kind of niggly feeling of regret is happening. And if that seed isn't kind of at least looked at, that's when things like bitterness kick in.
And so, I mean, that's like the podcast with you. And I suppose it's like, is there anything, I suppose it'd be interesting for people to hear, like anything that you can share that helped you like not fall into that of creating the regret of like not doing it, or like what was the, like, I've just got to do this, so I've got to pull the trigger on investing in getting help, or like getting over being on camera, or like those sorts of things?
I think the big thing for me is that I stopped stopping myself. And we will always find a reason to not do something. Always. Our kind of our mind chimp will always find something to, I sat for a long time like, oh, well, I've got a snaggly tooth, or the wallpaper in my office is like not.
We had some chats about the wallpaper, didn't we?
Yeah, we've had plenty of chats about the wallpaper, or my hair doesn't quite look like it should. And there was all of these things that I kept going, once I've lost weight, once I've done this, once I've done that, once I've planned more. And there was all of these things that kept getting in the way. And I just remember thinking, you've got so much to say. And there was just lots of people who were asking me a lot of the same questions, and were telling me, I love your story and I don't know how you do it. And all of these things that I just thought, nobody cares if I've got a snaggly tooth. Like nobody cares if I've got wrinkles and I've got frown lines, or, if my nails aren't painted, or if the wallpaper's dodgy. People just don't care. Those people that want to listen will listen. And it was that moment of, you just want to do it, just do it. And the investing was probably harder to do. And I would have launched a podcast much quicker. It was the time that I then didn't have. And I think since we've launched the podcast, I mean, I've literally had so many more inquiries. We've won, the launch week, the week we launched, we'd won, I think it was 8 clients in 8 weeks prior to the launch week. And, you know, that was completely unexpected. We hadn't really thought we were going to grow in the way that we had. If I hadn't have been outsourcing and I hadn't been working with you, the podcast would have been on the back burner. And I think that was the bit that, for me, this podcast it was all about the passion. It was all about doing something for me and doing something for people who just wanted to hear from me, not about, oh, how are we going to market it? How are we going to make money from it? How are we going to do this? And typically, that's how I've approached everything in business. So, you know, it's been really important to me that the Gloriously Messy Me podcast was about sharing the fact that, you know, the success is in our mess. There is like brilliance, as the manifesto says, you know, the brilliance lies within all of us. We just have to allow ourselves to see it. And if this podcast only helps, you know, one person do that, then for me, that's what it was all about.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, that I'm very much similar in terms of the things that I want to create. They're heartfelt, they're soul led. And it's like the things, because again, my background, like I've struggled with anxiety, OCD, depression, very logical control, like properly trying to control the world, like 5-year plan, 10-year plan, like 5-year, 1 year, 90-day, what am I doing? Like, and it's like,
exhausting.
Exhausting, but it's very logical based in terms of, but logical based on what you think you are trying to achieve. And it's like, when you start to go with what feels right in terms of like, I really want to create this, like it's stuff that comes from a deeper place, which is more meaningful to you, and you have less on the outcome. And what I've seen over the past few years working with the clients I've been working with is that when you start to do things from that place, rather than like the mind based of like, oh, if I can just get more money, or if I could just get this success, like if I could just get this number of followers, like then I'll be happy. It's like when you are actually just doing the things that you're really moved to do, that you know to do, intuition, following that intuition of like, I really want to do this. And it's not necessarily at the expense of your entire business. Like you've obviously still got Kimby going and things like that, but it's like you never quite know where following that intuition comes from. And like the podcast, it's like you could make up all kinds of things about what you need it to be to look like a success, but actually, again, going back to the ideas into reality, the success isn't turning it into reality. The success and the joy and the excitement is getting the opportunity to do that. And then when you keep following that intuition, amazing things seems to happen, like synchronicity, like you said, like so many things have happened from the like podcast, like hiring me. You wouldn't have gone, oh well, I'm hiring Paul to help me with the podcast. You wouldn't have gone, oh, it's going to help me like almost get over the thing of outsourcing for my entire business, and like how that might affect the rest of your entire kind of work life. Like you just can't know that, but it's like, maybe that's what the podcast was for. Maybe that's what investing in me was for. So and I think it's one of those where when you go with that mind of, you could imagine where it might go, but be open. I haven't got them at the moment because I've just recently moved, but I used to have a whole wall of Post-it notes behind me. And one of the Post-it notes is let the universe wow you. And it's like, rather than going like, I think I know where this is going and I'm going to make it happen, it's like amazing things happen, like unexpected things when you follow that, knowing that intuition.
And I'm such a big fan. So it's really funny. So the more I don't concentrate on Kinby, the bigger it grows. and I think, you know, I'm a big believer in your path will find you. And I think we miss opportunities because we're so busy looking for opportunities. And since I've chilled the F out, and, you know, I'm sure those closest to me will go, have you? But since I've chilled out a lot more about it, and that has only come with stability and consistency. So, you know, it's not easy. And I think that's the whole pretense behind, you know, the gloriously messy me. We think things are really messy. We think things are not working in our favor. We think things that, you know, our minds are messy. So our minds will take us in a completely different place to where our heart and our soul will be sometimes. I am a huge fan of intuition. And I think when we quieten down, things come to us. And it doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter whether you believe in, you know, things will come to you in a dream, whether you can, you know, think things through, you make a quick decision and it's very logical and then you move on. I really don't think it matters what your kind of mindset and philosophy in life is. The key point is that you're present. So whether you're making a decision here and now, that's it, you stick to it and go, oh, it was the wrong decision, but it was a decision nevertheless.
Yeah.
Or whether you're somebody that's like, okay, I now visualize myself meeting my future self on a beach that I've only ever been to once, bizarrely enough, but for some reason I have to trust that that beach is the place to go. Yeah. But if I'm really stuck, and I know that it's just my way of re-tapping into that intuition, and when I'm on that beach, I see old version Charlotte saying, bloody well done, I'm really proud of you, which I didn't see for a long time because I was so busy going, what's next, what's next, what's next? And as soon as I stepped back and saw Charlotte from 3 years ago saying, like, thumbs up, girl, like, I'm really proud of you, not only does that consciously make a difference in my life because I celebrate the wins, but also I think I've seen growth because I'm just a little bit more chilled out about it. Yeah. And that is, to me, success. Yeah. Being able to live. And I'm not a live in the moment person. I'm still not. And I'm, you know, anybody listening who knows me, which there's lots of people who know me listen, will know that I'm not a chilled out person. I'm not a kind of let's go with the flow in a lot of things. But I'm so much more in tune now with my intuition, which growing up I always was. And I lost that for a little bit. And I lost myself in that. And I lost my purpose, I think. And that's what I now realize is why Gloriously Messy Me is here, because I needed to go through those messy moments to realize that they're bloody glorious. And that's what's led me to have the wisdom and insight that I have now as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like so many people go have a similar experience. I had a similar, and it's like the conditioning of society, family, friends, and you kind of become the version that you think you should be. It's like,
totally.
Like, and you can then go out into the world. It's like for me, like my journey was that I went out freelancing starting in 2010, and it was the whole like make six figures and and all these things of like should, and you then just, it's never enough. You're always like, oh, there's another mountain, there's another, I'll be happy when, I think you said. And it's one of those where it was only when I understood the phrase enjoy the journey, but I never did, because it was always that the goalpost had moved, so therefore I couldn't enjoy it. It was like only when I achieve something, that's when I can enjoy it. But then the goalpost always moved. Whereas now it's so much more less about the outcomes and more about being able to enjoy the journey. And that for me is the kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say success, but it's that's what I want. That's what I want to be able to. I never be able to like that. Wake up out of bed and excited to start the day. I was like, I have things I could be excited about, but I don't actually feel it. And it's like, because you're doing things you think you should be, rather than whatever the hell you want to be doing.
It's like that 5 a.m. club. Oh, please. I am never going to be a 5 a.m. club person. And, you know, so I've got my family members, my mum in particular, I love her to bits, but she's like, you work too hard. You do too much, you know, you work too many hours. Like, I love working. I get joy from working, but I will never be a 5 a.m. get up, you know, and start the day with all the ritual. I just will never be that person. And for a really long time, I thought to have success, you had to be part of this 5 a.m. club. I think the earliest I ever got to was 6 o'clock. I get up at 7:15. No, that's a lie. I set my alarm for 7:15. I get up at 7 o'clock, sometimes a bit later. And I think it took me a really long time to grasp that. It's interesting. It wasn't that I didn't grasp that that's somebody else's idea of success. I got that. What I had to challenge myself was, you're not being authentically you when you try and be 5 a.m. club. So when I look at, other people doing 5 a.m. club, or those who, work into the night and do 48 hours solid, great. That's amazing for them. If that's what works for them, that doesn't work for me. And the real big wake up call was my daughter is just about to turn 21 and my son's just turned 16. And those years have gone so quickly. And because I wasn't so present in those moments, I feel a loss that maybe I've missed out. And I'm determined to move forward in my life and not miss out on that. And it sounds really cliche, actually, that you need to be present in the moment. But everything you said about waking up in the morning thinking, I've got so much to be happy about, but I've got a to-do list. I've got to get that to-do list done. That's not kind of what success works. And I think that, and having experienced, just a small part of that journey that you've been on, I could see so much. And I'm, much more of a contained person. I don't, like, you didn't know that there was trust issues there. That's much more the way that I have always led my life. I'm always kind of that kind of person. But I've absolutely experienced times of, kind of this obsession, and maybe not like OCD, but that anxiety of, it's never enough, and it's exhausting. And I just, I just wanted to make sure that that's not my life moving forward. And I think those people who can get to that point, for me, in my heart, are really special people. So what's the future hold? What does future Paul Bassi look like?
Oh gosh. I think very much more of the turning ideas of other people's and of my own into reality. It's like you're talking about success. Like, I've got one of my post-it notes by a coach, Karen DeMarco. It's success is a side effect of being at peace.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So for me, it's that, like, me being at peace, and that looks like enjoying the journey, being, as you say, true to myself, who I am, letting that real version of Paul kind of shine through. That's kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say what the future holds, but that's the direction I'm looking, because it's that thing of no amount of external success, whatever your version of that is, like, you're basically just looking to be at peace. Like, in this moment.
That's what I searched for, is contentment. And I said to my husband, I'm really content. He was like, oh, like, oh, that's a good word. Like, I just feel really content with my lot. Like, yes, there's more goals to come, but I'm very similar.
But it's also one of those where you can be content, but also striving. But
totally.
when you come from it, like, at both of those, the striving isn't like I'll be happy when, it's like, oh no, I'm good, but it's that thing of, let's play the game. Let's see how exciting the game could be. Let's see what it could, like, when I was younger, we always played the game of life. And it's like, okay, well, let's actually play the game of life and see what could happen, see how, not how good it could get, but what could happen. Like, and it's that thing of, that's, I suppose, the direction I'm looking, rather than specifically, I could list off a load of specific things that I maybe want to do or thinking about, but it's more that general, like, I do wake up now excited for the day of, what do I get to do? I've just been playing around with some different ideas about what I want to be doing, and I basically kind of have listed some general things I want to be doing, it like, in terms of ideas into reality, but the title is called The Playground. And it's like, it's that thing of, imagine like, I'm so grateful that I get to do what I do, because it's like I get to basically choose how I spend my days, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's like when people say like, where would you like to be in 5 years? I was like, I'd like to be where I am now, but just continuing to do, like, because I know that it will then evolve in 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I'm still being able to do what I want, when I want, choose what projects I'm working on, who I'm working with, like, and being at peace, not all of the time, because I don't think we all are, but it's like more and more of the time.
Yeah.
That for me is like, I suppose that whole, like, a life well lived sort of thing.
And that's the ripple effect, isn't it? And I think, you know, I'm a big fan of the ripple effect. And like, if you were to look at that impact, so I know that from the Gloriously Messy Me podcast, I've got 2 coaching clients that are both looking at developing their own life on their own terms. So that ripple effect of you supporting me get that voice out there has then supported those people. And both of those have a ripple effect that involves other people. And that's the moment for me. That's the legacy of success, isn't it? So that ability to collaborate and connect with like-minded people to create things that will impact other people's lives, that will then impact other people's lives, who will impact other people's lives. Like, it might sound really egotistical, but to me, we're changing future generations. And for me, that's a really important thing. Honestly, I've absolutely loved talking. I feel like we normally talk work a lot. So it's really nice to kind of see a little bit more of you as well. And I look forward to working with you for many, many years to come. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. Thanks to Paul for having it or joining us. I was going to say thanks for having us then. I feel like you've interviewed me a little bit as well.
I do that. I'm very much in the conversation type thing. It's
well, you know,
really
I'll talk for Wales. Never have any issues about it being the Charlotte show. But thank you so much for joining, and I hope you've really enjoyed the series of Embracing Your Mess to Create Success. That is the series, but it's all been about my mess and who's helped me unmess my mess. And I will look forward to you hearing more episodes soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.